find the girl in my mind, the girl, one who is my ideal.
For crying out loud, what are you doing?
What? Oh, well, I guess I was daydreaming.
Well, cut it out and start the program. Oh, never mind, I'll do it myself. Folks, this here is Language in Action, a program about words.
Well, that really is very uncouth, Crashaw.
Don't you call me that, you semanticist. No, see here yourself. Now, you asked for it. Now, wait a minute. Oh, wait, hold on. I don't know why it is, but every time I try to talk some sense into Fuddly, I always end up with a headache. Well, anyway, the doc has a very special guest today, a fellow named Clancy Hayes. So let's check the action, shall we?
I will build a dream house, cozy little dream house, roses round the door, you will love it more every day. And though it's big enough for you and me, someday there may be tea for three in that little dream house that I built for you.
That's just it, Clancy. That's just it. We're talking in this series about semantics, which, as I've said before, is the study of the relation between language and thought and behavior. Or another way of saying it is, it's the study of the relationship between how people talk, how they think, and how they act. On this occasion, as a diversion, I hope an instructive diversion, I'd like to apply the theories of semantics to a specific area of concern, namely to the words of popular songs. Let me go back to an earlier idea we dealt with in this series, namely the concept of maps and territories. The notion of words and thoughts as being the maps, and the world out there being the territory of which these maps may or may not be a correct representation. Some people have a tendency to make up beautiful maps inside their heads of the territory out there, paying no attention to whether or not these maps are accurate representations of this territory. These are the people who tend to believe almost anything they are told so long as it sounds good because the map is so beautiful, rather than believing what is said because it checks with the facts. Now, let us call this attitude a fantasy orientation. As distinguished from this fantasy orientation, there is what might be called the reality orientation, in which one tries to make maps which correspond closely with the territory and in which one revises maps as you go along. Now, I'd like to try to explain this and illustrate this difference between a fantasy and reality orientation by examining the words of popular songs, an area of verbalization with which all of us, I'm sure, are to some degree familiar. I'm concerned about this because at one stage or another in all our lives, we sing popular songs, we listen to them, and often we memorize the words. And the words we memorize, to some degree, mold our attitudes and our expectations. Let's take the problem of love, about which so many songs are written. The hypothesis I wish to submit is that, as young people, our ideas and expectations of love are molded by the words of popular songs. In other words, by the maps of the territory of love experience which these songs describe. But in all too many cases, the attitudes about love exploited in these songs are psychologically unhealthy. The principal emotions expressed are wishful thinking, dreamy and ineffectual nostalgia, unrealistic fantasy, and often self-pity. Therefore, the question I wish to raise is whether the unrealistic and emotionally absurd quality of these popular songs does not, when taken by young people as a guide to their future experience, damage their chances of reaching emotional maturity, or at least delay that maturity while they go through a series of unnecessary and avoidable crises and confusions. Wendell Johnson says in his book, People in Quandaries, that there is a discernible disease which he would like to call the IFD disease. Let me explain. The IFD disease is a triple threat semantic disorder of first idealization, then frustration, and then despair. And it works in the following way. First, one makes impossible and ideal demands upon life. Secondly, these demands are frustrated because the ideals were impossible to start with. And thirdly, as a result, you end up in demoralization, disillusionment, disorganization, and despair. Now, what Dr. Johnson said in his book is repeatedly illustrated in Attitudes Towards Love, expressed in popular songs. Let's go back to Clancy Hayes and trace with him these stages of love's unhappy progress. First, there's this matter of looking forward to love. The creation in one's mind is the object of love's search. An ideal dream boy or dream girl, the fleshly counterpart of which probably never existed on Earth. You know the idea, every night I dream a little dream, and of course Prince Charming is the theme, the he for me. You know that kind of thing.
Something like that. How will I ever find the girl in my mind, the one who is my ideal? Or will I pass her by and never even know that she is my ideal? Something like that?
Yes. And, of course, with such an ideal in mind, one goes around searching.
Oh,
And
yes.
in the
like
course
that.
of it, one meets a not altogether unattractive person of the other sex, and a psychological process known as projection begins, in which one attributes to a real person the sum total of the imaginary perfections one has dreamed about.
I took one look at you, that's all I meant to do, and then my heart stood still.
That's
It's a
the
good
idea.
trick if you could do it, isn't it? Well, anyway, there's another one I'm thinking of there that goes something like, now you were meant for me. I was meant for you. And I'm content the angels must have sent you, and they meant you just for me.
That's it. That's exactly the idea. And, you know, love is depicted, if you ever noticed, in all these songs as a kind of magic. Never in these accounts of love euphoria that are expressed in these songs is there any intimation that having found one's dream boy or dream girl, essentially one's problems are just beginning. Rather, it is stated that since one has found the object of all one's dreams and so on, all problems are forever solved. I hope Fuddley and Crashaw are listening to this.
Oh, yes, Doctor. Mr. Hayes and you have our complete attention.
Yeah, we're listening. But what's all this talk about magic? Nobody believes in magic anymore.
Oh, Crashaw, you're wrong. People do believe in magic. Otherwise, why do they listen to commercials and believe in them? Well, there's another story about this, too. Wendell Johnson operates a speech clinic where they take care of problems of stuttering and other such speech disorders. And he says that some people who come to his speech clinic will perform no exercises, do no drills, carry out no recommendations, not even read any books. Why? Because having come to what they think is the right speech clinic, their stuttering will somehow magically go away. And this is the essence of the belief in magic, the belief that no further effort of any kind is necessary in your problem solving. Now, isn't this same attitude often expressed in songs about love? For example, Clancy, you know, the idea of a land of bluebirds and fountains and nothing to do.
Well, I suppose in building the dream world, the first thing you'd have to build is a dream house to live in.
Why,
So,
sure.
I will build a dream house, cozy little dream house, roses round the door, you will love it more every day. And then, of course, you could specialize down a little further and get a particular room, like we'll have a blue room, a new room, or two room, where every day's a holiday, just because you're married to me. And they'd be sitting there on their little blue chairs, drinking picture you upon my knee, just tea for two, and two for tea, and me for you, and you for me alone.
That's it. That's the entire idea.
Don't you think the sentiments expressed in those songs are just lovely? So romantic and straight from the heart.
Straight from the heart. Say, Fuddley, have you ever been in love?
All my life, Crashaw. And with a wonderful, wonderful girl.
Yeah? What's her name?
Well, I don't know her name because I haven't found her yet. But I carry her image in my mind. And when I find her, the whole world will become a paradise.
Ah, you're kidding.
Crashaw, I have never been more serious in my life.
Hey, Doc, I think you ought to talk to Fuddley here. He sounds to me as if he's pretty far gone.
You're right, Crashaw. It does sound like a kind of serious case that Fuddley's got. And this, he expresses again this whole idea of love as a kind of magic. And this Blue Room song that you just sang, where every day is a holiday because you're married to me, it implies that not only emotional problems, but also economic problems, and even the housing problem is solved because you found the sweetheart of all my dreams.
You'll see a smiling face, a fireplace, a cozy room, a little nest that's nestled where the roses bloom. Something like that.
Yes, and that is the idealization that we make of love. And so what's the next stage? Next stage, of course, is frustration. The unrealistic expectations, because naturally love is never expected to last for any shorter a period than forever, lead inevitably to disappointment, whether from trivial causes or from grave. And because of disappointment, there is disenchantment and a real sense of frustration.
Broken promises leave broken hearts. Broken words, that's how the teardrops start. Promises that never could come true. I believed them, what else was I to do? Those vows we made, you took them all in vain. Love to you was just a passing game. When you promised we would never part, you broke your promise and my heart.
That's right. And the disappointed lover cries vociferously, I'm a fool to care, but of course, nevertheless, she wallows in tears. And the next stage, of course, is to say, I'm through with love, I'll never love again, and other such sentiments full of the sense of self-pity, you know.
You scattered each and every dream. You fooled me from the start. And though I still love you. That's the curse of an aching heart.
That's it. And then what is the final stage? Well, people nowadays are sufficiently acquainted with psychiatric concepts to know that when the world of reality proves to be unmanageable, a common psychological practice is to retreat into a symbolic or fantasy or dream world because symbols and dreams are easier to manage than reality itself. Now, when one makes this retreat, the psychiatric profession classifies this as schizophrenia. But this does not prevent it from becoming the theme of a very popular song. You remember the one I mean? I'm going to buy myself a paper doll to call my own, a doll that other fellows cannot steal.
When I come home at night, she will be waiting. She'll be the truest doll in all this world. I'd rather have a paper doll that I could call my own than have a fickle-minded, real-life girl.
This, then, is the picture of love's unhappy course as depicted by writers of popular songs in the commercial publishing world. And sometimes you're tempted to ask the question if songs could be otherwise and still remain popular. Well, as a partial answer to this question, as Clancy Hayes and I know, there is another kind of song. Let me present next the problems of love as they are presented in the words of blues songs, the Negro blues, such as are the foundations of American jazz. One of the first things you notice is that the object of one's love is not idealized, but looked at fairly realistically. For example, it's one thing to call a girl an angel, but it's quite another thing to look at angels the way they are seen in Harlem blues. You remember this, Clancy? Now, you can have your Broadway, give me Lenox Avenue, angels from the skies stroll seventh, and for that, thanks are due to Madam Walker's beauty shops.
Sounds like a commercial.
Of course, shortcomings of character or appearance in the object of one's love are candidly acknowledged. As you recall in a song like, you know, you're so mean and evil, you do things you ought not to do, but you got my kind of honey, so I guess I'll have to put up with you. In other words, isn't this great to-do about looking and looking and looking for one's dream girl or dream man. One adjusts oneself to the kind of men and women who actually exist. And therefore, refraining from forever chasing rainbows, as they say, the people depicted in the blues songs appear to save themselves quite a vast amount of emotional energy. Nevertheless, the fact of one's love being imperfect does not seem to prevent the intensity or the durability of affection. This is indicated in this lament over a woman's death in St. James Infirmary. Remember?
St. James. I went down to St. James Infirmary. I heard my baby groan, and I felt so broken-hearted, for she used to be my own. And I tried to keep from crying. My heart felt just like lead, for she was all I had to live for. I wish that it was me instead, though she treated me mean and low down. Well, somehow I didn't care, and my soul is sick and weary. I hope we'll meet again up there.
Well, now, that's my kind of song.
Oh, it is it? Well, tell me, lover man, What is the semantic principle that Dr. Hayakawa and Mr. Hayes are demonstrating here?
You mean you don't know?
Well, I'm asking you.
Well, as I see it, the point of the whole thing is that for lovers, one song is worth 1,000 words.
Oh, Crashaw, you're impossible.
Fuddley, this time I think I agree with you. Crashaw just seems to be missing the point. But I'm not sure that you both aren't missing it, and I'd like you to pay close attention. I'm saying that in the contrast between popular song and the blues, another contrast is that in the blues, you don't have this magical attitude towards love as solving all problems. That is, effort is necessary in order to maintain a love relationship properly, and you remember the famous blues singer Bessie Smith gave the following advice to girls, advice which is full of the sense of one's responsibility in a love situation.
A good man is hard to find. You always get the other kind. So if your man is nice, take this advice and hug him in the morning, kiss him at night. Get up and fix his breakfast, honey, treat him right. 'Cause a good man nowadays is hard to find, so hard to find.
That's right. Love means a mutual human relationship with responsibilities as well as rewards. And I wonder if you've noticed, too, that although in many popular songs the song is from the point of view of the wronged lover, in the blues you very frequently get a statement of the person who has done the wrong candidly acknowledging the wrong he has done. Oh, yeah.
Oh, won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home? She cries the whole night long. I'll do your cooking, honey. I'll pay the rent. I know I've done you wrong. Remember that rainy evening I put you out with nothing but a fine tooth comb. And I know I'm to blame, baby. Ain't that a shame? Bill Bailey, won't you please come home?
So there are tragedies and disappointments in love, in the blues, no less than there are in popular songs. But it seems to me that the quality of disappointment or unhappiness is different in the blues, because in the blues the fact of change in a changing world seems to be accepted. That is, people change, conditions change, and in spite of everything that you do to try to maintain and preserve a valued love relationship, failure may result. There's a song I remember of Bessie Smith's which states this problem of the sudden and tragic change of situation extremely well. It's the Young Woman Blues. Remember, I woke up this morning when the chickens were crowing for day, look on the right side of my pillow, my man had gone away. And by the pillow he left a note reading, I'm sorry, Jane, you got my goat.
You got my goat.
But her reaction to this blow, however, is not self-pity or tears or self-commiseration. The song continues, I'm a young woman and I ain't done running around. In other words, she may be hurt, but she's far from being demoralized. Now, this is what I find so interesting. This refusal to be demoralized, even under conditions which in popular songs calls for the utmost in self-commiseration and tears, seems to be found repeatedly in the blues. Therefore, instead of the sentiment of kick me in the face again because I love you, school of thought, the heartbroken men and women of the blues songs appear to regroup their emotional forces and carry on without breakdown of morale. In other words, the end of love is by no means the end of life. And so you find, I think, considerable tough-mindedness in the blues, a sort of head-on facing of the realities of existence. Consequently, one finds in the blues songs many comments on a variety of problems besides that of love. For example, a problem of urban congestion, as in I'm going to move to the outskirts of town. Or instances of folk wisdom, like, you remember when a woman gets the blues, Lord, she hangs her head and cries, and when a man gets the blues, Lord, he grabs a train and rides. And you remember that song that you like to sing involving this kind of folk wisdom, Nobody Knows You?
Nobody knows you when you're down and out. In your pocket, not one penny, and of friends you just haven't any. Soon as you get on your feet again, then everybody wants to be your long-lost friend, buddy, buddy. It's mighty strange, there's no doubt. There ain't no gal can use you when you're down and out. I say when you're down and out.
Thank you, Clancy. You understand, I'm not saying that idealization is in itself a harmful thing. Idealization is the necessary and inescapable product of the human processes of abstraction and symbolization. And without ideals, whether about love or other things, we should be swine indeed. But there is a world of difference between possible and impossible ideals. And what I am saying is that in popular songs, the ideals of love presented are almost always utterly impossible ideals. So let me resubmit the problem with which this program began, namely, do popular songs listened to and memorized in the course of adolescent courtship make the attainment of emotional maturity more difficult than it need be? I would like to invite you to give thought to this question on the basis either of your own observations or your own experience. And what I'm saying about attitudes towards love is true about all other attitudes towards other problems. What is our basic orientation? Is it one based upon fantasy, or is it one determinedly based upon reality? It is fundamental to problem solving and to sanity that we have a reality orientation, a habit of making maps that we try to make correspond to the territories for which they stand.
Close it up behind me, Golden Gate. I'm leaving on a midnight plane. Landing in Kansas City, 8:30, and then it gets a southbound train. Can't hardly wait to catch Katy, taking me home again. Lordy, Lordy, what a welcome will I get? I bet they take my photograph. Brother, you just ain't heard nothing yet. I bet they kill that fatted cat. 'Cause in my hometown on the Katy, old hog, it don't mean half.
This is National Educational Television.